Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and today we have a bit of a treat for you. As well as an excellent battle, we also have something of a literary showdown. What the hell are you talking about, Jingles? You have finally lost the plot. This isn't books, it's ships. Well, that's true, but two of the ships in this particular battle are actually named after books. Or, more precisely, the captains of the ships are named after books. To begin with, in the blue corner in the USS Massachusetts, we have Neptune's Inferno. Neptune's Inferno, of course, is a book written by James D. Hornfischer that I am constantly recommending. If you have the slightest interest in World War II naval history, go and read Neptune's Inferno. It's about the 6-month-long naval battle of Guadalcanal, and it is absolutely fantastic. I loved it so much that I raved about it in an episode of Mingles with Jingles, which James Hornfischer's nephew listened to and thought, wow, that's my uncle. And we got in touch, as a result of which I had some really cool emails with a fantastic military history author and managed to blag a signed copy of his book into the bargain. So hooray for James D. Hornfischer, or, since we're such close personal friends now, as I like to call him, Jim. Meanwhile, in the red corner, we have Shattered Sword. Now, this is the captain of one of the North Carolinas on the enemy team. And this is where the clash of literary giants comes in, because while I haven't read it yet, but I am about to, I've just bought it and downloaded it onto my Kindle, Shattered Sword is a book by military historians Jonathan Parshall and Anthony Tully, both of whom, by a strange coincidence, are actually friends of Jim Hornfischer, and it's to do with the Battle of Midway. The Battle of Midway, of course, often considered to be the turning point of the war in the Pacific, although, well, I don't know, you could make the case that that term might also apply to the Battle of Guadalcanal, or the Battle of the Coral Sea even earlier, but certainly one of the most famous and important naval battles in World War II. And what makes Shattered Sword special is that it references a lot of primary Japanese source material, rather than just going from American archives. Now, Neptune's Inferno here is running not quite, but almost a full secondary build in his Massachusetts. He's got advanced firing training, he's got manual fire control, but he's also running with Concealment Expert, rather than having inertia fuse high explosive shells. There's an argument to be made that in the current meta, stealth isn't quite as important as it used to be, with so much air spotting going on and so much radar and so on and so on. How true that is, I don't know. But in this particular battle, Neptune's Inferno here doesn't have any enemy aircraft to worry about. There aren't any carriers. And also, he's top tier, so he doesn't have to worry about the reduced penetration of his 127mm secondaries. It's perfectly adequate in a tier 8 battle. And of course the second... oh, shitty death. Well, there's an early citadel, which is nice. That's not Shattered Sword, though. That was the other North Carolina on the enemy team. Shattered Sword is over there, slightly to the right. Don't worry, the battle of the literary titans will begin reasonably soon. For now, he's quite content to just casually steam closer to the enemy ships to get them within that 11.3 kilometre secondary gun battery firing range, and continue to fire the occasional 16-inch armour-piercing salvo with his main battery guns. That first North Carolina is starting to come under some sustained fire here, although not as yet from the secondaries. That's the thing about the Massachusetts. I mean, it's a good ship, but it's a fun ship because of the secondaries. It's got a lot of them, and if you spec the ship properly, they can be ridiculously accurate and have a very, very long range. Of course, you pay for that, and he's only just now within... oh, wow. Oh, well. Yet more citadels, and there's the First Blood Award. So that's one less Tier 8 battleship that the enemy team can count on. And speaking of Tier 8 battleships with strong secondaries, the enemy Tirpitz over there, which he currently has his sights set on, but he can't actually hit because he's on the far side of that island. So instead, he's focusing his manual secondaries on anything that's in range, and just looking for slightly better targets. Now the Tirpitz over there he is. You'll notice his secondaries aren't firing, which is kind of unusual for a Tirpitz because they're just as much, if not more fun, with a full secondary build. And in fact, they're better than a Massachusetts for a couple of reasons. First, they will actually fire further than a Massachusetts, 11.6 kilometers, and also they don't have to take the IFHE skill, because German guns get 1/4 caliber penetration with high explosive shells. And the German battleships, as well as having lots of 128mm secondaries, also have 150mm secondaries. And those German 150mm secondaries, even without the IFHE skill, can get through 37mm of armour plating, which means they can penetrate the bow and stern plating of all Tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships, and they can do reliable and consistent damage to every cruiser that they're going to face. That's not something that you can say about the Massachusetts, even with the IFHE skill, because you divide the caliber by 6, not 4, to get the base penetration value, and they're only 127mm guns to begin with. I mean, Neptune's Inferno here is battering that Tirpitz with his secondaries, and his primaries, since he's very obligingly sailing such a nice broadside course to him. But the secondaries aren't actually doing any damage unless they hit the superstructure. Everywhere else they're just shattering, although they are setting fires, and it's the fires in fact that got him his second kill. At this point we're going to interrupt the battle for a brief comedy interlude, as the Z-39 over there, desperately trying to torpedo the Charles Martel, instead manages to torpedo and sink his own Fubuki. Remember kids, firing torpedoes from behind your allies isn't big, it isn't cool, and it isn't clever. Once Mr. Torpedo has left the tube, he is neither your nor anybody else's friend. Also, what's up with all of these ships sailing broadside on to Tier 8 battleships? Not that I'm complaining, of course, providing they're on the enemy team. Anyway, there's the Z-39. So Neptune's Inferno is focusing his secondaries on him. And even without the IFHE skill, the Massachusetts secondaries are perfectly capable of making life very short and interesting. And there it is. For destroyers of any size, shape or colour. But the thing is, by themselves the secondaries only have 21mm of penetration, which is fine if you're shooting at destroyers, well, destroyers that aren't the Khabarovsk, and pretty much any Tier 7 or below cruiser. Oh, hang on, first shots fired against Shattered Sword, here it is, Battle of the Literary Giants, and Citadel. First point to Neptune's Inferno. The problem with the 127mm secondaries on the Massachusetts is when you start shooting at Tier 8, 9 or 10 cruisers, which can have 25 or in some cases 27mm of plating. Even with the IFHE skill, you're still only going to be able to damage Tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships in the superstructure, but the IFHE skill can make a big difference when it comes to shooting at cruisers that are the same or higher tier than you. I have to say, this contest is not looking good for Shattered Sword. Neptune's Inferno is giving him a damn good pasting, although, well, if you're going to continue to sail broadside on. The North Carolina is a very, very good ship. It's got some ridiculously accurate guns, but, well, the armour isn't bad, but even a Grosser Kurfürst, given that kind of broadside, would be taking massive chunks of damage even from a Tier 8 battleship. And so, Shattered Sword loses to Neptune's Inferno. So, if you were wondering which was the best World War II Pacific naval history book to read, Jim Hornfischer's Neptune's Inferno, or Anthony Tully and Jonathan Parshall's Shattered Sword, after rigorous scientific testing here in World of Warships, we have come to the inescapable conclusion that Jim Hornfischer's book is better. Jim, if you're watching this video, send the money to the usual offshore account. Although seriously, I am actually very much looking forward to reading Shattered Sword, because it was recommended to me by Jim himself. Clearly the man isn't afraid of his competition. Anyway, well, the battle's not, I'm saying the battle's not over. They've only lost 3 ships. And the cruisers keep giving broadside. Why do you suppose the Algerie is doing that? Well, there's the Kraken, to go with a high caliber Confederate, First Blood, you name it. Do you think that there may be torpedoes on the way? I think there might be. I think Neptune's Inferno also thinks there might be, although he should be safely out of range because French cruiser torpedoes typically have a 9-kilometer range. Just to be on the safe side, he's ducking behind the island over here as well. Although the Bismarck up there may be in range and might have to start thinking about running his hydro or perhaps adjusting his course and speed. Meanwhile, the secondaries are making life all kinds of interesting for the Nagato up there. He's just been set on fire again. And a lightning's just popped up, and I think Neptune's Inferno is looking to try and sneak a 6th kill in here. But he's going to... Nope, too late. Charles Martel got him. Swinging the guns around again. Trying to finish off the Nagato. Although the Bismarck's turned broadside. You see, this is the thing. The poor Nagato. I mean, he's so screwed. If he turns to give broadside, to fire all of his guns, he's dead. If he continues sailing straight away, he can only fire 4 guns at his pursuers, and they can pretty much fire everything at him, so he's dead. No matter which way you slice it, the Nagato's dead. And that just leaves 2 ships remaining on the enemy team, for the loss of only 3 ships on Neptune Inferno's team. And unfortunately, they're both way too far away for him to have any further influence on the outcome of this battle. Although, maybe he can grab a sneaky cap if they survive long enough to let him do it. And it's at this point in the video where we have a bit of a plot twist, because believe it or not, Neptune's Inferno here isn't just named after the book by James Hornfischer. This is actually James Hornfischer playing World of Warships on the North American server. I have to admit, when he emailed me and said, I've got a replay here for your consideration, I thought, well, you know, because it can be embarrassing, can't it, when somebody that you know sends you a replay. What if it isn't any good? How do you tell them, I'm sorry, but your game was shit? And, luckily it wasn't. So, you know, well done, Jim. Because, you know, I can call him Jim now that we're such close personal friends. And it's nice to see how he's coming along because, okay, the enemy team didn't provide an awful lot in the way of actual opposition, but he didn't really do anything wrong. He made smart choices, he went for the right targets, and you know, that's reflected in his score. Almost 167,000 damage done. Most of that against the enemy top-tier battleships, so he wasn't hiding from the fight. He was going after the biggest, toughest ships on the enemy team and giving them a comprehensive spanking. Now, the question as to whether or not Concealment Expert or IFHE was the better choice on the Massachusetts. Here's the thing. He got almost no use whatsoever out of the Concealment Expert skill in this battle. And that wasn't because there's anything wrong with the Concealment Expert skill, it's because of the aggressive way that he played the Massachusetts. Even in a game without any aircraft carriers, he was mostly permanently spotted, because that's the fun thing about the Massachusetts, getting in close and using those secondaries, making them work for you. That's what makes the ship fun. And in secondary gun battery range, Concealment Expert isn't going to help anybody. On the other hand, if you look at the amount of damage that his secondaries did, 20,000 direct damage and another 13,000 from the fires that they set. If he'd been running IFHE, would he have done any better? And to be honest, in this battle, I don't think so, no. Most of the targets that he was shooting at were Tier 8 battleships. IFHE wouldn't have made any difference. He still wouldn't have been able to penetrate their bow and stern plating or their deck armour, and would still have only been able to damage their superstructure. All of the destroyers that he was shooting at with his secondaries, the Z-39 for example, he wouldn't have needed IFHE to do any damage to them, and he didn't really spend much time at all shooting at any of the cruisers where IFHE might have made a small difference. So in this battle, at least, the skill choice really didn't matter, and he's clearly comfortable using the Concealment Expert build. Myself, personally, I do run with IFHE, but I think at the end of the day, it's really just a matter of personal preference. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're used to playing, whatever you can make work for yourself. The one thing that we can categorically state without any fear of contradiction as a result of this video, however, is that Jim Hornfischer's Neptune's Inferno is clearly a better book than Jonathan Parshall and Anthony Tully's Shattered Sword. Shattered Sword tried to put up a fight, but it just melted under the withering firepower of Neptune's Inferno's superior grammatical sentence structure and eyewitness historical accounts. But seriously, you should probably go out and read them both. Neptune's Inferno, definitely, if you haven't already read it by now, because I've read it and it is fantastic and I do recommend it. And Shattered Sword, because while I haven't read it, I'm about to. And I'm about to because Jim Hornfischer, the author of Neptune's Inferno told me that it was worth reading. And he wrote Neptune's Inferno, so he clearly knows what he's talking about. And on that highly convoluted circular argument bombshell, that's it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you found something interesting to read out of it as well. As always, take care, and Jim and I will catch you next time.